Welcome to Moving Conversations, a podcast for movement professionals by movement professionals. If you coach, train, or teach movement, Pilates, or fitness, then this podcast is for you. With more than 60 years of experience in fitness and Pilates, your hosts Brian Ritchie and Nora St. John explore the science of human movement, diving deep into the facts, myths, and common misconceptions, hoping to spark thought and conversation about how we view fitness and movement. Now, let's jump into Moving Conversations. And welcome back to Moving Conversations. I'm your host, Brian Ritchie. Joining me as always is Nora St. John. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good, Brian. It seems to be winter. Everybody I know has been coughing and losing their voice. Me and you both included. So it's that winter thing. Oh, they've got some beautiful sunshine here. And so I'm looking forward to a beautiful day.
Yeah, when we recorded last week, I was in Chicago teaching at ACSM Idea Summit, and the place was so dry.
Yeah, it is. Those rooms are terrible.
They are. And after the first class, I felt it going. And by the third class, oh my gosh, I was turning the microphone up as loud as I could and hoping that I could make it home. And I made it home, but I got to tell you, I'm still croaking, but I'm hanging in there. I feel fine. It's just, I'm croaking. So if everybody will bear with me, we'll get it make through as we are.
Oy,
exactly.
I know. I finally got mine back, and now you're losing yours. This seems to be how it goes.
I know. And that's winter. That's winter around here. It's going to come and go. I find that everybody's immune system is on a reset. We're all trying to reset from pre-COVID days. And, you stay in a bubble for 2 years where you're not around anybody. And guess what? Your body's immune system doesn't work the same way it did before.
No, it gets out of practice.
Yeah,
Just
big
seriously
time.
Out of practice. Yeah, I mean, they say that respiratory illnesses are really, really high right now across the country, and I'm certainly seeing it and hearing it and, and feeling it. Oy.
Yep. Well, today's topic, we're not going to be talking about immune system. We are going to be talking about jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing. Whether or not in your career, should you specialize or should you be a little bit more general as either a Pilates instructor, personal trainer, fitness instructor, group exercise, whatever it is, that is your, path. What should you do? And let's do some pros and cons and sort of take it from there.
So the first thing here is some of our topics have been for more the general public or anybody who's got issues going on. This one is really specifically aimed at people who are in the fitness industry, personal trainers and Pilates teachers, et cetera. So I just want to make that clear for those of you who have been listening for a while and are curious. So a couple things, Brian, you and I both, I don't know about you, but I feel like I ended up specializing somewhat just because of the situation I was in.
Yeah.
Right. I wasn't sure I chose it. It was just, that was where I ended up. That was the environment I was in. So working with clients with injuries and issues became my specialty simply because that's where I was hired. That's where I started working. That was my introduction into the field.
Yeah. I had a very similar, when I started out, just brief backstory. I started out working in my mom's facility in Hawaii, and she'd gotten injured. She basically said, I need help. I can't do this. She tore her ACL and MCL and had surgery. So she needed someone to be her hands. So I started working for her and stayed on. And a lot of our clients coming through the door did like yours. They had injuries, and it wasn't the same percentage as I see now, but it was definitely, 50%, maybe a little bit higher. So I got my hands wet from that.
Yeah.
And that sort of set me sort of down one path. But I'll be honest, weight loss was really the path that I was on first as a specialty. That was really my specialty. Even when I got to Washington, D.C., I mean, I was working out of a gym here, and I immediately said, I'm starting my own program here. I called it Rapid Results, and this is what we're going to do. And the gym at first was a little like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I just said, look, you don't have anything like this. So let's figure something out. And we worked together, and I did it and it was great and it worked really well. And it wasn't until I started realizing how many people were coming to me that did have issues, that did
Mm.
have more and more issues, that I started to specialize more away from weight loss and into the post rehab world.
Aha. Well, that's interesting. So yours was you were exposed to it early on,
Yep.
but you went down a particular path, which was a personal interest to you, I know,
Yep.
and then from there branched back out again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
your mind, Brian and I have spent a lot of time together. Brian's mind is analytical, it's scientific, it has a real love of the medical profession and how it works and how the body works in that way. Not everybody's
Yeah.
does. So for you, it makes perfect sense that understanding weight loss and understanding the specificity of that would lead also to wanting to know more about the specifics of a knee injury or a back injury or the kinds of things.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. I mean, what led me into more of the weight loss was not only my own journey, but also coming at it from the nutritional scientific side of things.
Aha.
So covering everything from supplementation and all of those type of things,
Mm.
what can help, what can hurt, covering, macronutrient levels to micronutrient levels, and doing all of that stuff made sense analytically to me. So I enjoyed sort of the breakdown and figuring all that out and the nuance to it. And then working with clients and trying to figure out what's going to work best for their bodies. Uh, and yeah, it wasn't until later on that I realized that I was probably a little out of my scope of practice, because I was really doing a little more of what a dietitian did. But again,
Aha.
when you first start out, we don't know anything.
Right. We just go
We're just
and
trying to
learn.
help. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
just trying to help. And we have such a passion for helping people that you really just sort of want to hang out your shingle and say, let's do this. I can help you. And I had a lot of background. In fact, at the University of Hawaii, I lectured for my professors occasionally on
Hmm.
nutrition. And this
Aha.
is nutrition classes. They actually wanted me to talk because I was the only person who actually had specific personal experience with a massive amount of weight loss. So that was sort of an introduction into the whole lecturing and that sort of thing, and getting into it a little bit deeper from the nutritional science side of things. And that was fascinating to me.
So there's a personal connection, but and then it's also just your personality, right? That you really
Hmm.
you love the research and you wanted to know more. So, you did the research and you read the
Yep.
material and you tried to figure out how that applied to the clients in front of you.
Yep.
And one thing that I always say when somebody is early in their career, and I was just at Pleasant in Spain and talked to a lot of new instructors, is it takes a while, I think, to understand what attracts you.
Yes.
Like what are you interested in? Because the thing that will keep you working in this field for a long time is curiosity, is actually
Hmm.
really liking what you do, being interested in the clients that you're seeing, being interested in their issues, whatever they are. And that's what I find creates longevity and satisfaction, and decreases burnout, is really like loving what you do and finding what that niche is for you.
And let's face it, we didn't do this for the money.
No, we could all be locksmiths or plumbers and make more money. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's really
exactly.
not the thing.
Exactly. And when you don't get into fitness for that, you get into it because you have a passion.
Yeah.
And I find in my realm, there were a couple of different people. There was the former jocks
Uh-huh.
who
Yep.
have a
Yep.
passion for exercise and really
Yep.
wanted to make people healthier.
Yep.
And then you had people who were jocks but went into and got injured and worked with a physical therapist and saw that side of it and thought, you know what, I can really help people. And some of these
Yes.
people do go to physical therapy school, and some of them realize that, you can make pretty much about the same amount of money doing a personal training, and it gives you a little bit more freedom
Yep.
if you go that route. So that's the other, sort of side benefit. Or someone who had lost a lot of weight or had some sort of journey that brought them to fitness. And I find a lot of
Yes.
older people, people that get into it in their 40s, people that get
Yeah.
into it in their 50s, second career, third career, those are the people who had a journey that brought them here, and now they're passionate, and their passion is off the charts. They
Yes.
really want to help people,
Yes.
become healthier as we age. And I find that those are three sort of very distinct paths that I see,
Hmm.
you know? And then I think the longer you're in the game, if you're working at a gym, a couple of things happen. Either one, you start getting promoted and
Yes. You
you
become a
go from
manager,
right,
right?
exactly. Exactly, because you realize that in a gym situation, you are closer to a used car salesman than you are a healthcare professional
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's about sales. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that, but the club needs you to sell so many packages
Yeah.
and you have quotas and all of that. So eventually, if you're really good at that, and when I worked at the gym, I broke records because I knew how to sell and I was passionate about what I did, and I was very busy. And, I set all the top training records and everything. So a lot of times they'll take that person and say, well, you should be management.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that takes people out of their passion
Yes.
into that next level
Yes.
because they'll make more money and they start thinking about the money aspect rather than helping people.
Yeah. And it's off. I mean, having been around the fitness industry in terms of the club industry and the gym industry, um, the amount of turnover, inconsistencies,
Huge.
changes in management. Everybody I know who's been a manager in those circumstances is either very savvy and pretty kind of politically adept at dealing with a complicated and ever changing corporate culture, or they're or oftentimes they give up. They go
Yeah.
back to teaching, or they open their own studio, or they do something else. So it's an interesting challenge, that one. And I think for a lot of us, we just want to do it because we want to teach, right? We want to teach,
Right.
we want to make people better, and that's really the thing.
Yeah.
One thing I want to bring up, Brian, in terms of your story, because is my story as well, is when you are 100% dedicated to what you're doing, which you
Mhm.
are and you have been for a long time, as have I, it just makes a difference. And not every teacher is going to come to it from that.
Right.
Right. I know there's a lot of instructors in both of our industries who are part timers, who have another job, or, are a mom and does this on the side, or teaches 3 or 4 Group X classes a week because they love it and it makes them feel good. So a lot of people in our industry, a lot of people are part timers,
Absolutely.
right? And in some ways, that can be a benefit in the sense that you can just do 3 or 4 classes a week or 10 classes a week or whatever it is, and that can provide you with the stimulation that you want from teaching, but not necessarily tax you or lead to burnout or other kinds of issues.
Right. Right. And we need those people in the industry because those
Absolutely.
people do have passion for their classes. And a friend of ours, April, taught a step class forever. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you can barely find steps in clubs anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
She still taught it. And the last time I talked with her, just pre COVID, she was still teaching it. She loved it. You have the same people coming to you. And it becomes your family. It becomes, this social network, this group. And I find that there are a lot of places like an Orange Theory or a CrossFit or whatnot, that it's almost the social environment that brings people in almost more than the exercise because you become addicted to, the social part of it. And for those people, that becomes part of who they are. Teaching those classes is part of their lifestyle. It's a way for them
Hmm.
to exercise. You and I both know people who teach classes as a way that I'm going to get paid to exercise. So it's
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
but it's also in their community or whatnot. It's part of who they are, their identity, that they are an instructor and in front of the class, and they get whatever feeds them for that hour, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a week. And they still have a regular life on top of that, or a regular job.
So this brings us to just a classic kind of bifurcation of the industry, and that is the group X instructor, the group exercise instructor, whether it's Zumba or yoga or stretch and tone or Pilates group classes or whatever. Like there's the group instructor.
Yep.
And I know, I have several teachers that I know that are absolutely committed group instructors. Like
Yes.
they love the energy, they love the performance component of it. They're more comfortable giving, like leading a group through something than working in that more intimate way that you have to when you're doing a lot of correctives and a lot of, changing
Yep.
somebody up if there's an injury. And so some of it is just personality. It's like, do you love to be in front of people and telling them what to do, basically, because that's your job as a group
Yep.
exercise teacher of any form, or do you like to get into that little more intimate, little more like, ooh, let's really go into detail on this.
Yep.
And different people have very different attention levels of either that very high level of detail or not, and just really wanting to take somebody through a wonderful exercise, a wonderful routine.
Yeah. Yeah. I found the same thing. That's how I first started, was doing group exercise classes, and I enjoyed it. I had fun. It was a way to play. I joke all the time that I get paid to play with people. I majored in recess, basically, is how I tell people,
Yes,
because
exactly.
we get paid to play. And if we think of it that way, especially for the group X instructor, it's wonderful. They really do. They get to have so much fun with these people. And for some of them, one of my clients goes to a dance class here in DC, and it's like a cult with their
Yeah.
instructor. This guy
Yeah.
is just the most rockinest, you know, out of control. I mean, this guy is awesome. It's hard to
Yes.
get into his classes. And you know
Yep.
what? That is wonderful. He has that personality, and he has
Yep.
found a niche for him that just works. That's his specialization.
Yeah.
That is his niche. He loves it. He's locked in. He teaches so many classes a week. He can make as much money as he needs to with that. And he's thrilled. And that really works for him. And I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. You and I both know, not necessarily my personality. I don't know about you, but I don't think it's.
Group exercise, I was never that drawn to. I'm too much of a nerd, as are you.
Yeah. Yep.
And I like it. Like I enjoy teaching a group class, but I'm more interested in the detail. I'm more interested in that high touch, high intimacy situation where I can really get in there with somebody and make a change and subtly give them those corrections. Like in a group class, you're not going to give those kind of corrections, right? You're not
Right.
going to say, hey, Alice, watch your left knees getting a little bit overly rotated. Probably not going to happen. I mean, sometimes, but not usually. Usually group class is like, okay, everybody, we're doing this. General corrections go. Okay, everybody stand up a little taller, or, don't
Yep.
bend your knees or whatever it is, but they're going to be more general.
Yeah.
And if that suits you, fantastic. I think about, you mentioned one of your friends, and I have a teacher who's been through the Pilates teacher training, has been a group X instructor for close to 50 years now. I'm
Hmm.
thinking, yeah. And she was she was an ACE master trainer, and she's been like through a Nike master trainer. She's like been through all of that, went through Pilates, and now, is back to still teaching group at a club. And her classes are packed. They've been packed for 50 years because this
Yeah.
is absolutely her passion. She creates that connection in the group. Everybody comes because they're going to see Carrie again, because Carrie's their Monday at 10 person. And they're
Yep.
going to see everybody else in the class, right? That social glue. Like everybody's going to
Yep.
notice if I don't show up, because I
Right.
always show up. And if you don't show up, someone says, hey, where were you on Monday? And you're going to feel maybe guilty or whatever. And so you're going to show up the next Monday. And that's just a wonderful thing about group stuff, is it really does create that community, both for the teacher and for everybody in the class.
Absolutely. I do find that group exercise is a easy door or easy entry point for the fitness world.
Yes.
Uh,
Yep.
because you can teach one class a week or two classes a week. You can become
Yep.
certified over a short period of time.
Mhm.
And if you've been taking group exercise, you can see if you have any skills in choreography or thinking fast on your feet and all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of this you can learn depending on what your type of class is.
Yeah.
But it's an easy form of entry for the novice, for someone who has never necessarily been a personal trainer or a Pilates instructor or a yoga instructor. It's a great way to sort of get that entry level into the world.
Yeah.
I find that even with personal trainers, when they first come in, I sort of joke around that they're the jack of all trades.
Yeah,
because
often.
the newbies are so hungry for the hours. First of all, they need
Yes,
to work,
yes. They're trying to make a living.
got to make a living, and they're being oftentimes, you know, yelled at by their boss to sell more packages and things. So they need to make the money, and that makes sense. But they're the ones that I find will, you need your son's into lacrosse. I can teach that. You
Right.
know, your daughter's
Exactly.
into crew. I can help with that conditioning. You
Yep.
need to lose weight for a wedding. I can do that. And
Yep.
it's whatever comes down the pike, I can do it. I
Right.
can do it.
Because you kind of have to at that early stage.
Exactly. Whether you know it or not, you know, I kind of joke about Dr. Google. It's the same thing. It's like, okay, what's a good lacrosse conditioning program? Let's look it up
Uh-huh.
now.
Yep.
And the next time you come in, you're like, all right, we're ready to go. And they could have Googled it themselves. Uh, but that's where almost everybody starts out.
Mhm.
And I think maybe this is the same way and I can't say for other careers, but I think internships maybe are where people, you know, decide this because I've talked to a lot of attorneys when it comes to internships, is that's usually where you figure out where you want to be in your
Yeah.
field is the
What kind of
first year
environment?
or two,
Yeah. Yep.
you know, because that's really the time and place for you to test the ground and see, you know what, I like working with athletes more than I do old people.
Right.
Or, man, I just love working with the older population.
Yep.
And so that's going to be who I'm going to focus on when I'm at the gym or whatever. And I find it's almost like a funnel. It takes time for you to sort of figure out what your interest is within your
Yep.
field
Yep.
and then focus that direction.
Yeah, and from a Pilates teacher, as a beginning Pilates teacher, there's so many different ways that goes. A lot of times now, the entry point is teaching reformer classes. It's something like a club
Right.
Pilates, right? Because that's kind of where the there's always a need for instructors in every club Pilates I've ever been at, pretty much. And you're often given somewhat of a format, right? And that's true too in group X. I think about Les Mills or other kinds of pre-choreographed programs
Mhm.
where you're taught how to progress from one thing to another, what the
Zumba.
program's going to
Yeah.
be, and you kind of learn along the way. And then if you are particularly creative or motivated, then you develop your own flavor and your own style and your own stuff.
Right.
But those are often like the entry points in, and that's really where you get your feet wet. To your point, like, do I like this? What do I like about this? Which clients do I resonate with? Which ones are like, oh, I hate it when so and so comes in or when so and so's in class, and just understanding that. And as a new instructor, if any of you are out there listening or new instructors, listen to what your gut tells you. Like,
Yes.
if you're having a really good time, notice why you're having a really good time. Like, what is it? Is it the music? Is it the people that you're working with? Is it the environment that you're in? Like, what's making you have a good time? And if you're not having a good time, notice why that is. Is it like a boss that's a little bit fussy or picky? Or is it colleagues that are not very friendly? Or is it clients that are just driving you nuts? Like, understand that, because that will help to guide you
Yes.
to where you want to go and where you're more comfortable and where you're happier.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Uh, to get that focus in your career, I think is super important. And it all comes down to passion. What feeds your soul?
Yeah.
Because if, like you said, if it's the music, if it's working with a group and getting that energy, I mean, you and I said it when COVID hit and we went online, you and I are so energy driven from the crowd
Man,
that suddenly
it
I'm
was
talking to a
tough.
camera and only a
Oh,
camera, and you have to turn up your endorphins and your adrenaline, and everything has to be turned up to 11, your personality. And it's so much different than when you have a group in front of you who's giving you their energy. I mean, this
mhm.
weekend, I'm in Chicago and I taught a class for our friend, Joy. I filled in for her. She wasn't feeling well. And it was 100 people there. And I was on fire. It was so much fun. I got
Yeah,
so much feedback from everybody that I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I was just rocking it and having so much fun. And you can
yeah,
feel that you can feel that, and that's what feeds my soul.
yes,
Teaching is one of those things that feeds my soul.
yeah.
And I think I'm not going to put words in your mouth when it comes to what we do when working with clients who have injuries, because again, 95% of the people that I work with have injuries, but it's those breakthrough moments. It's working with the client. It's that detective moment when you have all of these, bits and pieces that you're trying to put together. You've got a puzzle in your brain, and I've loved puzzles all my life. I'm
Yeah,
a
me
Mensa
too.
puzzle nerd. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm putting it together and and let's try this, let's try that, let's do this, let's do that. And when you start seeing things working, and it's like, yes, and then they say, oh man, I was able to do something I haven't been able to do in a long time.
Yes.
I still, one story that I tell in class, and I'll reiterate here. I had a client who emailed me. I got an email, and we'd been working together for probably a couple years. And I got an email saying, I'm writing this in tears. And my thought was, oh my gosh, what'd I do?
Right.
I'm thinking, okay, what did we do last session? Okay. Or what did you do? Now, she was in a very traumatic, huge accident that shattered one half of her body. So
Oof.
she had some major issues going on. And she said, I'm in tears because for the first time in the last 25 years, I was able to take a bath. I could get in and out of the tub without fear. And I have not been able to do that in over 25 years since the accident.
Awesome.
And I am so happy. And to me, that right there was like, made my year, because I knew I affected a change in her life that
Yes.
made everything else better. That
Yes.
quality of life was a huge improvement. It's not just losing 10 pounds, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Losing weight is fabulous. It can
Yep.
really do a lot of things for people. But when you can really affect a change of that magnitude, or taking
Yeah.
someone who's had knee or back pain for the last 5 years and suddenly they're like, I don't even notice it anymore.
Yeah.
I could play with my kids. I could pick up my grandkids. It's like, yes, I was able to help put that person where they needed to be to make that happen. And that's what
That,
feeds my soul.
that's yes. So for you and I, the fun parts are two things. One is the problem solving.
Yes.
And one of the things that I say to teachers all the time, and I think about this a lot myself, is maintaining your curiosity. It's like every part of this person comes in, it's like, what does this body have to tell me? What's happening here? Wow, why is that hip up like that? And I choose to always frame it as, what's happening there? Rather than like, oh, I know exactly, like, oh, the pelvis is doing this and da da da, like analyzing it. No, first just what's happening. Just take a step back.
Yep.
What's going on here? And what is kind of the major thing that I need to focus on? What feels like, what's calling to me? Oh, it's that right knee, or it's, oh, that left ankle, or, oh, clear that low back is in a funky state, or whatever it is. And and I think about starting out, as a teacher. And I remember, this is a long time ago now, but I do remember those first few days on the floor at St. Francis Pilates, studio, with mostly it was still a lot of dancers that were students then. And I just remember being fascinated by everybody who walked in the door. Like, oh, that is so interesting. That person has this alignment and they have that problem. And this person has their foot is kind of a funny shape, and that seems to be leading to pain, in the medial shin or whatever it was. And I fell in love at that point. I just absolutely fell in love with that, and
Yep.
with the complexities of the Pilates system in terms of ways to deal with something, ways to move something, ways to stretch something, ways to strengthen something, the complexity of it too. Other people have a different experience, right?
Mhm.
Other people like, let me actually back up a moment there. One of the things so curiosity is a key thing, and that was a key thing for me, and I think a key thing for you is just that
Yes.
love of puzzle solving and problem solving and kind of critical thinking, and then working with that client that closely too, because I really love the intimacy of like, what are we doing here, and how can we make this change, and what if you try this, and what if you try that? That was just so much fun.
Yep.
The other thing too, though, is if you're out there and you're really thinking you want to specialize in something, but you don't know how to do that, Go get some education. Go talk to
Yes.
people in the field. And what I'd almost suggest you do before you invest in a large amount of education, whatever that is find some people who do what you want to do and just call them up and talk to them. You get so
Yes.
much information that way.
I could not agree more. I spoke with a gentleman this weekend who came up to me after class and said, I think this is what I want to do. I think this is what I want to do. And I was like, great. I'm thrilled, and he said, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area.
Uh-huh.
I said, cool. He said, I said, please come and see what I do. He said, really? I said, please.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're going to see what the day-to-day interaction
What's
is
this
like.
actually like? Yeah.
I believe so strongly in internships and in shadowing hours. Before you do anything, if you want to work with it, I can't tell you how many people come to, they end up shadowing with me because they need to for their high school or their college or whatever for their degree. But I asked them, where do you see yourself? They say, I want to work with a college team. I want to work with a pro team.
Yeah.
A lot of people want that. I say, fantastic. No problem. I said, have you ever done it before?
Yeah.
Well, no, but that's what I want. I say, call up every single team, college and pro, and just ask if you can be a fly on the wall and shadow for a week, 2 weeks. I say, tell them you'll get coffee, you'll wash towels, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Showing up is half of it.
Yeah.
But going in there, in fact, I had an hour-long conversation with a junior in high school who wanted, to come here. And I said, look, where do you want to be? And he really wanted the team aspect and he wanted to work with pro teams. I said, then that's where you should be shadowing first.
Yeah.
See if that is really the lifestyle you want, because the coaches are not the stars unless you're the head coach.
Yes.
The athletic trainers, the sports and conditioning people are not. I have a friend who was the strength and conditioning coach for the Penguins for a number of years when they won their championships. He said, it's not all glamour. He said, I'm the one loading the bags on and off the bus. I'm the one who's there before anybody gets in there in the morning. I'm the one who waits until everybody's gone to make sure. I'm the one that makes sure their food is ready for them. I was like, that's hard work. And that's a 24/7 job.
Yes.
And these are people that need to be catered to. So I say, if you want that, go for it. Focus on that. But why don't you go in first and shadow and watch and see if that's really what you want? Because for me, the day I knew that I wanted to get into working more with rehab was when I realized how much I loved working with older clients.
Yeah.
I was doing some home calls as well as working at a gym. And one was a couple in their 70s. I saw them actually until they both passed away. Saw them forever. They were like my grandparents, and I did not grow up knowing my grandparents. So it was really neat to have a relationship with someone who was much, much older, who had amazing stories to tell, and who I could really help with what was going on with their bodies and make them more functional. And I said, wow, this to me is more fun than working with someone necessarily for weight loss or bridal boot camp or whatever I was doing back then, because this was actually what I felt, wow, I like doing this. And it was problem solving and creativity. And I thought, wow, this is more fun to me working with these clients.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I have, I think of one teacher that I've worked with who's a Pilates teacher, but also is a physical therapist. And she specialized in working with athletes forever. And she used to work at the name, I will not name the name, but a great big athletic training facility that a lot of the teams use. And it was really interesting because I went and spent a couple days there, just following her, seeing what her life was like, seeing how the training went there. And it was really interesting to me. It was fascinating because especially the personal trainers and the athletic trainers, I was actually a little bit shocked. Like their job was like, okay, do 10 of those. Okay, go push that.
Yep.
There was no correcting. There was no refinement in terms of anything. It was just, you need to get this in shape. You're going to go do that. And they're going to do 10 of those. You're going to do 15 of those. You're going to do 3 sets of those. I'm going to spot you here. Like it was fascinating that the lack, from my perspective, of really getting in and working with them. And what I realized, which was really interesting to me at the time too, was if you're going to end up at that high level of performance, for the most part, you have a body that can do that.
Yeah.
Right? You're born with it and you've trained it and whatever, but basically you have a body that can tolerate that level of activity, build that level of strength, and contain that level of coordination, whatever that is. Right. Yep. So really all they were doing in terms of personal training and athletic training there was just taking them through a workout, like like just do this and this and this and this and this and this and this, boom, done. And I realized like I would be bored to death.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, because there was no, like, my brain wasn't necessary. You know, I was kind of given like, oh, they need to strengthen this and this. Okay, I'm going to go do 12 of those and 6 of those and I'm done. And that just didn't interest me. But, you know, the people that were there loved it, loved working with the high level athletes, loved watching them perform, loved being part of the ambiance, you know, the kind of the aura of being around superstars, which is great.
Yes.
And they also can be on the fussy side. I mean, I know a lot of people that work with particularly football players. Can. Yeah. And, you know, and I, a friend in India who works with Bollywood stars, and she would get a call at 2 a.m. going, I need to see you right now. I'm going to be on in like 3 hours, like come to my house. And that's what she does because that's the kind of service that is needed with some of those kinds of clients.
Yep. I remember my mom was actually, when a movie or a television series was moving to Hawaii, one of the stars reached out to her. One of the stars people reached out to her and said, we'd really like to work with you 5 days a week and for a good amount of money. Kid you not, it was good money. For the time, it was like, wow, that's my whole month. I don't need to see another client. But it was, you will be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can't have any other clients. Because you're mine.
Right. Because I may need you at any time.
Right. And it was like, no. And they were flabbergasted that someone would say no. And I was like, heck no. I said, we've got a life and we have a business and we have clients that we are responsible for. But I guarantee someone said yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For the privilege of working with a star. And you know what? Good for them. That can make or break a career for some people. We've seen it. How many times have we watched television and seen someone's personal trainer who doesn't know a lick? Oh my gosh, they are dumb as a doorknob. And we listen to them talk and think, oh my gosh, they're representing us.
Right.
Holy smoke. I was like, for years, I hated to tell people I was a personal trainer because I immediately figured that the image in their head was dumb jock, couldn't get a real job.
Right. Yes.
Because that's what comes out of a lot of people that we see on television's mouth. So, but that is a path that some people choose. And especially with today, with social media and everybody wanting to be an influencer because they feel that that's their way to stardom or to fame and fortune, whatever, more power to you. But for you and I, it's about the connection. It's about the one-on-one. It's the problem solving. It's the small changes in how they do something that all of a sudden makes all the difference in the world. And you can see as soon as they feel it, their eyes light up and you're like, yes,
I did it. I got him.
That moment.
We made a change.
Know it. Yes. And it's awesome, that feeling. It's awesome when you feel it. And it doesn't have to just be in post-rehab or rehabilitation work like you and I do. It could be any specialization that's out there. It's whatever floats your boat, really, whatever drives you as a person, that is what you want. I trained a gal who was a very, very, very high level lacrosse player,
Uh-huh.
national championship team in college. And she was recruited by other teams after she graduated to coach. And in the off season, she said, no, what I really want to do is do conditioning work. She
Oh,
said, oh my gosh, it's awesome. And she charged an outrageous amount of money because she was with a very high level team at one point and now coaching for a very high level team, that she was able to charge an outrageous amount of money. And any of you who are parents know that when it comes to your children, you'll spend probably more than you care to think to take
your
them to that next level.
your children or your horses, apparently, too, is another
Horses, yeah,
right. That's another thing people spend a ridiculous amount of money on.
exactly. But that was her passion. And she loved it so much, and she's made a career of it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be more proud of her for that, because again, she found what her passion was, you know?
And she had experience with it. Because one the other thing I say a lot, because I've had many people like you come up to me and say, I really want to work with pro teams. And I'm like, do you have any experience with high level athletics? It's like, well, not really. It's like, okay, if you're working with a pro team, there's something I often say, which is if I'm working with somebody at that level, whether it's a dancer or it's an athlete, they have to know that I'm not going to waste their time.
Yes.
Right. So I have to walk the walk. I have to talk the talk. I have to be able to challenge them where they need to be challenged, or it will not be a successful relationship.
Yep.
And, generally I can morph enough to do that. It's not my strength, but I can do that when I need to. And I've clients who are like, they've got 3 sisters. They've never really been very athletic and they want to work with pro basketball players. I'm like, no, I mean, sorry, but you really need to have a deeper something in you to make that happen. One thing I also want to mention is if you decide that there's a specialty you like, and I've been talking to a lot of people lately who have really dived deeply, primarily in the Pilates realm, into I've got some people that are working specifically with neurological conditions. And I was just
Right.
talking to somebody who specializes in cancer rehabilitation using the Pilates equipment. And these guys have really honed it, like Brian, like you've done with weight loss, Brian. They just dived in and they did
Yep.
a ton of research. They talked to a whole lot of doctors and oncologists and cancer specialists, nurses, and other kinds of people. And then some of them took a course or developed a course and really got the foundation and the basics. If you're working with something specialized like that, get the information, because you can cause more trouble than it's worth if you don't have the basic information. So make sure if you are really going into a specialty that your eyes are open and you've done some training and some teaching and some learning to really understand what needs to be done there.
Absolutely. There are people that I know who decide they're going to go into working with cancer people who are
Yeah.
going through chemotherapy because they need the exercise.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I bring up immediately is I said, okay, do you speak with their physician? And occasionally I've talked to a few people who said, well, not really. I don't really need to. I know what I'm doing. I said, no. You have to know what their cocktail is. You have to know what
Exactly.
chemotherapy and radiation is,
Yeah.
because some types of chemotherapy, exercise will have it flush out of their system.
Yep.
And the last thing they want is to go through all that chemo and not have it stay in their system. So for some people,
Yeah.
no exercise. And I've been told by doctors, do not exercise this person. They need nothing while they're doing this. Great.
Right.
Fine.
Right.
And other
Exactly.
doctors are like, no, they need to work out. They need as much as you can do. They need
Yeah.
to get up off the couch and get their body moving. So yeah, understanding what goes into it, talking to the physicians, if you're going to work with something like that, or talking to the professionals, or talking to people who are already doing it, I find is
Exactly.
really, really important.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
and what my rule is here for post rehab, as I said, I will let anybody come in and shadow. Just don't open up across the street.
Right. Right.
That's
Exactly.
it. That's my only
Exactly.
rule.
That's the rule. It's a good rule.
It's like, 5 miles away, 5 miles in any direction, we're not going to be competing with each other.
Yeah.
There's another place downtown that this guy and I were friends. He opened up the same thing that I did, and he did shadow with me, and he opened up. We're far enough away that we do not pull from the same groups. We do not pull from the same people. And what's great about it is if I find someone who lives down by him, it's like, hey, why don't you go see him instead? You
Right.
know? And he does the
Exactly.
same thing.
Get
He's
your
like, oh,
fulfillment.
you're in upper northwest. You go see Brian.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier in that sense. But
Yeah.
absolutely find someone who's already doing what you want to do and try that.
Hmm.
Don't assume that you're going to learn it all through theory.
No, watch, because so much of what we do is not documented.
Right.
Right. I mean, I always laugh about the research in terms of movement of any kind. And at some point we'll talk about this. It's like, it is so far behind our experience as movers, as teachers
Yeah.
of movement. It can't keep up with the subtleties and the ways that, if you're working with somebody for 20 years or working with clients forever and ever and ever, you've developed all kinds of little subtle ways of making things a little more efficient, a little more effective.
Yeah.
And there's no research on the planet that keeps up with that kind of thing.
And also, if you're just working with theory,
Yeah.
I taught 3 different classes this weekend. If they had taken and never worked with, anybody before, I taught a course on the pelvic floor. And if they've never worked with anybody with pelvic floor dysfunction, do you think that by taking the theory from my 1-2 hour class that you're going to learn enough to be successful? There's no way. And
No.
also, if you just read one book or you
Yeah.
read one thing, I can show you another stack of things that say the exact opposite.
Especially with the pelvic floor, just to be clear. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That research goes in every direction at all times.
Every direction. Well, low back pain,
Low
similarly.
back pain too. Exactly. There is
You
no
know,
one answer to those things.
well, I discovered that when I was doing flexibility. I mentioned, I think here, I had a stack literally on my desk about this high of papers that said, stretching, good for you. I had another stack next to it, same height, stretching, not effective, not efficient, that doesn't work.
Exactly.
I was
Right.
going to say, what are we doing here?
Uh-huh.
So if you're just working based on theory, it doesn't work. You have to get your feet wet. You have to go out. You have to intern. You have to shadow, see what people are doing in the field already. How does it make you feel? Is that really what you want to do? And if it is, learn from those people. Where did
Yeah.
they get their background? Where did they get their training from? Was it university level? Was it through certifications? Was it
Yeah.
through, whatever it is? And then absorb that way. Start slowly. Don't jump in and assume that I started reading the book. I'm on chapter 3. I can work with you now. Doesn't work that way. Dive in, do a deep dive, then stick your little toe in. See how it feels, and then gradually move forward. But it's not something just to dive into all of a sudden, I think.
No, and if you can, which you've mentioned already, and I think it's really true, is just if you can find a mentor in your field that really lights you up, that you really like what they do, you like how they work, you like the environment of their studio or their whatever their clinic, then see if you can mentor with them. I've done a lot of mentoring. I do
Yep.
a lot of it over Zoom, and somebody will come to me and say, "Hey, I've got a client. They've got this issue. I'm doing this and this and this. This isn't working. This is working. What else can I do?" And we just problem solve. And it's
Yep.
just, if you've got somebody like that, it's worth $1 million. I mean, for me, starting at St. Francis, we had physical therapists, we had doctors, and we had each other. And when I was stumped, somebody came in and they were mentioning the technical names of all of their surgeries. Well, I didn't know the technical names of all their surgeries because it's usually like Fred's, knee surgery and Joe Alex's like shoulder surgery. I didn't know the specific names of these. And so I'm like, I didn't even know what body part they were talking about. Right. I'm
Yep.
like, so, as I sort of said, well, where does it hurt? What's happening? And did my best. And then I immediately went to my PTs and went, would you explain these to me? Because I don't know what this person was talking about.
Yep.
And I had somebody to talk to. I had somebody I could always go to when I was stumped. And that's really important to have in your back pocket in any kind of specialty, whether you're working with athletes or you're working with injured clients, or working with older folks, or working with anything. Just know somebody you can go to and go like, I am stumped. What is happening here? I don't get this. This isn't doing what it usually does. What can I do?
In psychology, psychologists baby psychologists have to work with
Yeah.
someone who has been in the industry. So when they are working with a new patient, then they go to their mentor
Yep.
and they go over the case. I do the same thing with anybody who starts on staff here and people who intern. I can't tell you how many times I've hired interns, after they've interned with me for a while, just because they're here, they already understand our philosophy and they seem to like it. So I'll hire them. But we go over cases. There's a gal on the floor that this morning, I'm literally in between clients. I'm walking into about to start a Zoom. Can I get you for a second? On this person, I was doing this and this is what I saw. And I said, okay, have them lie down and try the same. Oh, I said, it just bound up their hips. Have them lie down and try this. Got it. So in that little bit of time, she had access to me. She could ask me. I could point her in the right direction. And I said, try it and then let me know if it worked. And if it didn't, then we'll
try something else. Then we go down the list.
Something else.
Yeah.
But having that relationship. So I think you hit the nail on the head, finding a place to work, even if it means a cut and pay, if that's really what you want to do, starting and learning from someone who is already doing what you want to do at the level that you want to do it. And learning as much as you can. Be a sponge. I am so frustrated. I've had a number of people when they start, I say, look, I'm going to give you a salary. You're going to be working on the floor. Your first few months, your job is to be my shadow. Literally, you're on my hip. If I'm working with a client, you're standing right there. If you have questions, you ask. My clients are used to it. Don't worry. Ask. Don't worry about looking foolish or not knowing. This is how we learn. And my best instructors are the ones who, when they don't have a client and I'm working, we're talking 10, 15 years later, they're still watching. They still come and observe because they'll see me do something different. And they'll come to me later and say, I saw you do this with that person. Did you see this or did you see that? And I'll say, okay, here's what I saw and here's why I did it.
Yep.
But I've also had staff who, after a few months, I've gotten them busy and they're busier. They stop watching. They stop observing. And that tells me where their passion is and isn't.
Yep.
And a lot of them have moved on. They no longer work with rehab because it's too difficult. They'll work with something else, and that's fine. I'm glad you found out at a young age. Thrilled for you. Wish it wasn't on my dime, but I'm glad you figured that out. But yeah, it tells me a lot immediately. And those who are hungry will always watch, will always question, and will always sort of push and be like, but what about this? What about that? And I have this and I have that. It's like, great. I love that. It shows me they're hungry.
Yeah. And whatever, looking at the wrap up here. So whatever you're thinking, right? Whatever you want to do, when you start to find that, dive in. And again, there are many ways to approach this industry. Brian and I are completely embedded. This is who we are. This is what we do.
Couldn't do anything else.
This is our life. I mean, it just is what it is, right? And that's not true for everybody. A lot of people really do this part-time. They do, a few classes or a few clients or whatever, and that's totally fine too. But
absolutely,
if you really are serious and you really do want to dive in deeply, do it. Like, find your mentor, find your courses, see who you like to work with, and then pay attention. Pay attention. Look at who you're going to, look at what's happening, look at what you love, look at what your teacher's doing, and just absorb, because that's what'll keep you going. And that's what's kept me going for 30 plus years. And I think Brian as well.
Absolutely. No question. The only thing I would add is you'll know your passion when you hit it.
Yeah. Life becomes better.
Yes. And you'll see it, you'll feel it, you'll do something, you'll be like, oh, that felt different. And it's going to feed you. There's something about that client or that situation. You'll be like, okay. And when you feel those moments, that's really when you say, okay, that might be what I meant to do or what I really want to do.
Yeah. When you come out more excited after a client than less excited, you know, you got a little bit of a buzz going after you've worked with somebody, those are clues.
One last thing, had a client come in who has, oh my gosh, issues. There's, books could be written about her.
Mm.
But when she's sitting across from me, I think she could see I was like this. I couldn't wait to go. It was like, okay, this is awesome. And she's like, and I said, no, you don't understand. If I have to do another knee replacement, oh, shoot myself. I mean, because to me, that's so easy. But to have someone who comes in with something that I know just only a little bit about, but I have an understanding. It's like, okay, you and I are going to work together and we're going to figure this out. And I'm not giving up if you don't.
Love it. Yeah.
And that's
the deal.
And you can see it in their eyes. They're like, really?
Whoa.
I'm with you.
This person's committed.
Yeah. And I always tell people that if you find a doctor who's a detective, it's the best.
Absolutely.
And same with what we do. If you find someone who's committed and who wants to be there as much as you do to solve this problem, it's awesome. So when you find that passion in your life, you're gonna feel it, and you're gonna know you're in the right place. We covered a lot today, didn't we?
As usual.
As usual.
A lot of different ways to go to this, and just find your passion. This is great stuff. What we do, it's so exciting. It's so much fun. It's so stimulating and rewarding. And if you're in it to win it, go for it. Keep learning. Enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on Moving Conversations. Again, if you like us, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe every week. It'll be in your inbox Tuesday morning. It drops around 5 a.m. So it'll be there right when you wake up. You can listen to us on the way to work or wherever you choose to. And you can always reach us on our socials, and it's always at Moving Convos or movingconvos@gmail.com. If you want to ask us a question or have us cover a specific topic, or maybe review a topic that we didn't go into, as much detail as we could, and you want us to do a deeper dive, we can do that as well. So for Nora St. John, I'm Brian Ritchie. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.